Good morning, Joe Wennberg, Bluebird Semaphore. This is October 1st, 2023. And my intention today was to put up, about 9 or 10 paintings. Some from probably 20, 22, 2021. And others more recent in 2023. But I've been also jumping at the bit to talk a little bit about Magellan and John Adams, and because of some things I saw yesterday, a little bit about bluegrass, country music. I'll start with the country music. So I'm watching YouTube on television, and you can get a good read on what's going to be in the video. So I saw one. It said Ernst Scruggs, and then it listed some other names, and one of the other names was Bill Monroe. Now that really got my interest. Now, I would have looked at this anyway, even if it didn't say Bill Monroe, because Ernest Scruggs kind of also hit a chord with me. My wife tells me that he may have been involved in the banjo scene in Deliverance. I haven't looked it up to verify it, but she says he was, or he probably was. A fantastic banjo player. I'll just start with that. So I looked at the video. I think it's Ernest Scruggs, and maybe that's it. Oh, Joan Baez is in it also. So I looked at it, and I'm watching him play, and boy, can he play the banjo, like no other. He made some sounds. He made the banjo make some sounds. They were extraordinarily pleasant, but just technically astonishing. I don't know how he did it. So he was quite the guy. He seems to be a very calm, cool, collected guy. And he's been playing the banjo since he was 5 years old. Very wonderful. If you get a chance, look at it. Because, like I said, you'll also see Joan Baez in her home in California. Ernest Scruggs went to her home and they recorded a little bit. His son sings with her. It's a great segment of that video. But the greatest part, in my estimation, is the parts that include Bill Monroe. And now I know what all the hoopla is when it comes to Bill Monroe. Let me just say that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, who knows, I was, amongst other instruments, I was attempting to play the violin. And of course, to me, genre doesn't matter. You play an instrument, sounds well, then you're doing what you should be doing with it. Not casting aside most of the genres and just doing one, say, that you're in love with. So anyway, at the time I was trying to do a little bluegrass, and the name Bill Monroe would come up a lot. Actually, I think even in anthologies of bluegrass, there would be the name Bill Monroe. So I had to look into it, and I found out that he was a musician, well esteemed, and he was from Kentucky, and at the time, though, he was living in, I believe, Ohio County, Indiana, I believe, just above the Kentucky-Indiana border. So I put it in mind, hey, I'm going to go see this guy. There's no way I'm not. And I used to make, once in a while, trips to Alabama, up in the northwest corner of Alabama. So I thought there'd be an opportunity. I also, via my brother's marriage, via my sister-in-law, I had access to places in central Kentucky. And I can't speak more highly of those folks that I met in central Kentucky and the surrounding region. As a matter of fact, my sister-in-law brought me to a real folk country cemetery. You'd hardly know you were in a cemetery. Grassy knoll, stone here, stone there, but quite nice. Quite nice, not overgrown, but not, not planted in a Home Depot fashion. This was just rural country stuff. Quite nice. And I said, when I die, this is where I want to be buried. Sitting on the top of this hill, laying in the ground, looking up at the stars. That would be absolutely excellent. But anyway, so come to find out, I'm getting a little closer to where there could very well be a trip in that neck of the woods. So I started looking into the whereabouts of Bill Monroe. Come to find out, he had already passed away. So I wasn't going to see Bill Monroe. And it's a shame. I really thought it was a shame. But lo and behold, yesterday, while I was looking at the what was contained in the Ernst Scruggs video, there was Bill Monroe. And I think they did say the Blue Mountain Boys. And so I watched it, and eventually Bill Monroe came on. And man, this guy was head and shoulders above every other musician in that documentary, including Joan Baez. Joan Baez was probably number two, because Ernst and her were of equal merit. But Bill Monroe, heads and shoulders over everybody. What a fantastic musician. It's almost as if he was mystical, almost as if this was he was involved in out-of-body experiences while he was playing. And he played on a very small, it looks like six-string instrument, I don't know what it's called. It looks like a very small guitar, although it doesn't have that body, it has another form to the body. It's very small, and he played so fast. You can't make it up how fast it was. And then another segment that included him, I think they did some in the Grand Ole Opry, but maybe only Greg Scruggs and his family did stuff in the Grand Ole Opry, and that was fantastic. I don't know what these people who say they're country singers are today, but they're not these guys. They're just not. God. But one part he's older now. Bill Monroe's older, and he's going to play. I forget the name of it. Something, I don't know. It's very lovely. Just 2 words to the name, and he's playing, and it's only 2.5 minutes long, whatever he's playing. But the act of standing up is affecting him because he's old. And before he's done playing, he's actually bent over. Still playing, going like crazy, but he's totally bent over. You can't see his face anymore. He's just bent over. He finishes the song, and then he pops up erect again. I'm telling you, you got to see that video. Look up Ernest Scruggs, Blue Mountain Boys, and see who's in it. If Joan Baez is in it and Bill Monroe, see it. It's great from start to finish. Another guy in there, Doc Watson, he's totally blind, and he's in there playing it. He plays up a storm and sings, as they all do. There's something about the country music, the old-time country music. It seems like they all could sing. And also, it doesn't get any better when the women jump in. Because they're always sitting down on a very simplified chair of some sort. They always have a white dress on, and not fancy or anything, like a kitchen dress, cotton. And they play on their guitars and they sing in it. And that is always a big part of any bluegrass music scene. It's always a big part if they have that. But so I finally, now I know the score of Bill Monroe. I'll be checking into that for the rest of my life because that is really something special. Like they say in the film Deliverance. It's the second time I'm mentioning that, right? In this talk, because the first mention was about the banjo playing part of it. So, but I also got a quote out of that movie that I use quite often, is that when they finally make it out of the river, which of course, they had to get out of that valley, which was being inundated to create a dam. And that was the whole reason why this foursome went there in the first place, was to see that valley before it was taken out of the inventory of natural places and put under an artificial lake to make a dam. And they had been in there, and then all that other stuff happens. But they finally make their way out. The bad guy is dead. He's buried under the water. But the locals, they know something's up. And they have their suspicions that this guy, these guys may be behind why they haven't seen their in-law in quite some time. But anyway, they're all getting together at a big dinner that they're having in a country-looking dining room. Actually looks more like a barn room, but I don't think it is a barn room, just a large room. And they're eating and eating and eating, and the one guy, an old lady, he's sitting next to an older lady, and while they're eating, they're making small talk, and he takes a bite out of the corn, and he turns to the older lady, and he says, "This corn is something special." Now, I take that, and I'll be eating at this affair and that affair, and I'll use the same words, and not necessarily just the corn, but whatever I am, I'll say, whatever I'm eating, I'll say, "Boy, this is something special." So that's my story about that. Now, the other things I just want to briefly talk about before I get to the main part of this video, which is to show paintings. I wanted to talk a little bit about, bring you up to speed on my reading John Adams and Magellan, those two books. John Adams, I'm really getting tired of him. No matter what I read now, everything, he's just smeared with the stink of the elitists. He just stinks with that odor. So I'm not, it's going to be hard for me to get through the last half of that book. Because there's one thing I don't like, it's the freaking elitists. Okay? This country was made by elitists who didn't give two any iotas for the people under them. And I don't care which big time name you want to put in front of me. They were all elitists, and they did not care about the people. None of them did. To this day, they don't. So I'm not sure I want to spend any more time on this person. It just doesn't gel well with me to waste my time reading about some elitist who's so close-minded. You would think that he can't even tell that he's an elitist, but he knows it because they say it throughout the book. We're the better people. We're the better people. We're better than them. We're better. You're better. Anyway, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But with Magellan, I have found Magellan to be quite an absorbing read. And it looks like something that I'll be able to blow through pretty easy. I think the author's name is Tim Joyner. That's what I think the author's name is. And the book is already 30 years old. I believe it was written in 1990. The copy I have is in immaculate condition. The jacket is in perfect condition. The whole book is immaculate. If I wanted to criticize, I'd say the print is a little too small. But that being said, who cares? Now, I'll take a minute to tell you a trick I've been doing now for about 2 years. I'll take the jacket cover off a book that I would have recently acquired one way or the other, and I'll put it aside and read the book without the jacket. This way, when I'm done, the jacket put back on the book, and it's in excellent condition. But the Magellan saga is getting to be quite intriguing. And I'm at a point where all the intrigues that went on in Spain and Portugal before he even left port with his 5 ships, and then moved down the coast of Africa and cut across the Atlantic. Now, if you look at the map, there is one piece of that transatlantic crossing where Africa and South America are pretty close. I would say maybe 3 lines of longitude. He goes down that far south, then he cuts across, and he shortens his trip. And it seems like the trade winds are favorable also at that latitude. And what's interesting, as you all know if you've been watching your documentaries, and I'm not talking about just the YouTube documentaries, but many, because there was a documentary, and I think it was a lot made of it about longitude and how this lowly farmer boy in countryside of England, I think Yorkshire, was very interested in things of the sea. And he put together the first so well-designed clock that it was so accurate that he could use it to measure longitude, because that's all it really was about. Because as you go around the globe, east to west, you're really going minutes and degrees and so on. And it's always the same minutes and degrees. So if you know when you start, and you know the time you spent and your speed, you can figure out where you are on this, line that goes east to west around the globe. You'll know where you are, and you'll know your longitude. And that was in the 1700s, and it's always considered the discovery of longitude, or how to calculate longitude. Well, lo and behold, there was a guy in Magellan's crew, one of his higher echelon navigators, that figured out a way to get longitude using principles of mathematics and charting of the night sky. I won't go into it because I might say a thing or two wrong, but certainly on Magellan's voyage, he had a person who could calculate their longitude. They already knew how to get their latitude, so those guys knew where they were. That's not well known. Every time you read anything about seafaring in the 1500s and the 1600s, it's always that, well, these guys were on their own. They had no idea where they were. Well, maybe a lot of them didn't, because maybe a lot of them didn't have the mathematical skills needed to calculate this longitude. So that could be true. But the point is that somebody in Magellan's crew, and, he started his journey in 1519. So this guy was already alive. He already knew how to do it pre-1519. That's 1519, okay? That's like 250 years before the dude in England came up with his chronometer. Anyway, exciting read. All the other big wigs on those 5 boats, not all of them, but I would say 70% of them, they were all against Magellan. And they plotted against him, and so on and so forth. But he was more than their match. They couldn't outsmart him. A lot of killing and such had to be done to ensure order on those vessels. But Magellan was up to it, and he was a minor nobility, but he didn't come from the same lineage as the most of the other lordly types on that expedition, because there were really 2 types of the lordly classes. One that directly led back to major league kings and whatever their high order social types, and others that led back, yes, noble lineage, but not to the highest orders, or seemingly actually different anatomical types. Magellan was short and stocky. These other guys were more tall and fair skin and so on. But so right now I'm off the coast of Patagonia with him, and they're having serious problems, and they haven't even reached the low latitudes of Patagonia, although they call them the high latitudes, because as you're going south, the numbers are going up. You start at 0 and you go down. He's in about the 46, 47 degree latitude right now, and I think you got to get down to about in the 50s somewhere to start turning the Cape Horn. And little do they know what they're in for. But they're already getting a taste of it down there in Patagonia. Very strong winds, very cold weather, giant-sized natives, some as tall as 7 feet, very husky, big guys. Quite exciting. And, I wanted to show you this. And much more precise information from that book on exactly where the Spice Islands are. Very precise. So I'll see if I can get this up and get you a gander. All right, so I'm putting this up, and I don't know how well you can see it. This is backwards, but here we go. You can see it a little bit. Okay. This is Australia. I'm going to go down like this. Australia. Okay, that would be Malay. Okay, so this would be Malay. And of course, this is 180 degrees out. You'll see it correctly. This would be Malay. This is going to be Borneo. This is going to be, I forget the name right now. And off here, if you blow it up, if you can, you'll see another island that looks a little crab-like this, but it's much smaller. And then in between that island, and this is the western point of New Guinea, but in between that other island in here and the island itself, that's where the Spice Islands are. And it's the only place you can grow cloves, and they also got nutmeg from there. I think they said they got ginger also. So you can see exactly what we're talking about with the Spice Islands. And if I get a better picture, I do have different geographic maps that will put that in a little better light. So so we're doing Magellan. I told you about the, what was it? The Adams book, which, like I said, I'm getting fed up with all those elite types in the early part of this country. And of course, they're still all around. They still run the show. And why people don't understand this, I don't know. But I guess they want their toothpaste and their I was going to say shoestrings, but who wears shoes with strings anymore? They want their things, so they're willing to kowtow to the elitists. You guys run the show. We'll watch television and we'll go to work in the morning. Not a problem. So that's that. Now, just briefly, I've always been interested in Tibetan, and there's 2 books. I'll put them up here. Okay, 2 books. This one being Magic and Mystery in Tibet, and this one being The Secret Oral Teaching in Tibetan Buddhist Sects. Okay, by the same author. This one came out, I'd say, in the late 20s, and this one came out, no, this one I think came out in the late 20s, and this one came out more like in 1967. And, 1967. And what's interesting is that this llama is talked about in this book, which doesn't mean a whole lot, except that, she's retracing her steps. The author being a lady, Alexandra David Neal. And the llama is Lama Young Den. This book just says, it's the name of the title, I've already said, and Alexandra David Neal. Okay, Tibetan stuff. And like I said, I've always tried to read about Tibetan culture, the Himalayan mountains, always. Like there's one book, The Heart of the World, I believe it is. It's a young, we would call a person a trekker today. The young man, I think it was in his 70s. He set out for that part of the world, and under amazing difficulties and challenges, he finally makes, because what he's trying to get to the name of the Bible, the heart of the world, and somewhere it's in some remote valley, more towards the east of the Himalayas, and never entered. The valley was never entered by Western man, and so there's all sorts of religious significance in that book, The Heart of the World. I forget the author's name, and wonderful descriptions about the places out there. But he's not dragging his heels, dragging his feet on it either. He just moving forward, giving you the names, giving you the rivers, introducing you to people. As he does this, you're right there with him. It's a wonderful, wonderful read. So that book and quite a few others, books that brought me up to Lasha in a penetrating way, and in a broad way. In these books, the lady so far is just mentioning Lasha, all right, as she travels through. And she becomes like a real lama and very scholarly and well-respected person, well-respected by the Tibetan religious people. And so these books, I'm sloshing through them simultaneously. A nice little aside about this book, it is a City Lights publication. City Lights, if you don't know it, is a infamous publishing house in San Francisco who published the likes of Allen Ginsberg, Leonard Ferlinghetti, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and Jack Kubiak and others. City Lights books. Listen, that was in the hippie days, but they're considered a knowledgeable and decent publishing house. At least I believe they are. And once again, what do I know? I don't know anything. But those people, Lawrence Ferlinghetti and Allen Ginsberg, they could write. They were serious literary people. And I remember one of Ferlinghetti's lines from one of his poems, and I didn't look this up just so I can say this, but it was the name of the poem was, I think, Old Italian Men. And it just goes, old Italian men with dark glasses and this and that, playing that bocce ball. Nice poem. So, those books. Now, to get to the paintings, what I got paintings from a little further back, and then 3 or 4 from the most recent things I've done. I'm going to start with the ones from back. So, this is one, and we've got to get the light right? This was a problem last time. So like, I don't know how far back this goes. As you could tell, this glaring light doesn't really help. I'm pretty sure I need it. Don't I need it? I don't know. I think I need it. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's see if I could do it with this. So that's one. I don't know how far back it goes. Probably goes back 2 years. Maybe more. Then there's this. It probably goes back 2 years. Maybe 3 years. And I may have put this up once before. This one I call Costumes of the Far East. There's two. Not all of these have names. Like, I don't think this one does. This one doesn't have any name, and I don't think it's associated with the Far East project, where that Costume of the Far East definitely was associated with that. The Far East project. So this is that painting. This is a painting from some time ago. I can't say exactly how long ago, but one of them. Okay. Of course, if you're interested in any of these, or you want to know more about them, you could always contact me. But I think you got to subscribe, and then you can leave a notification, and that should get an email or something to me. So here's one from a little bit closer in time. Okay. From that group, there's one more. And now we have a few that are the last things I've been doing. These were probably, you could probably say that these were done during September of 2023. Yeah, most of these don't have a name, although eventually they may get one, but most of them don't. And then one more. This is the last one I did. I probably did this last week, and it's still quite, it definitely has not dried yet, so it's certainly still a little wet. Wet to the touch, and that I could handle it like this. Doesn't really harm it. And those are the paintings. So, without much further ado, I'll leave you with that. And I hope to do some piano videos in the upcoming weeks. The more you practice, you tend to make some improvement. I wouldn't say a whole lot, but you tend to make some. So here we go. I'm going to shut this down. Have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Bye.